Now to water had that I knew whom the elves called Ulmo turned his thought, and of all most deeply was he instructed by Iluvatar in music. When you hear the waves of the sea crashing tumultuously or softly on the beach, that beauty, the sea calling to the heart of every person, is something we can all understand, and indeed it is in that feeling, that divine allure, that the echoes of the music of the Ainur and the realm of Ulmo, Lord of the Seas, is at play within us. For of all things, the music can be still heard most in the sound of the seas in the world today. Hey everyone, Yoiston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today we are finally looking at the character of Ulmo, the Vala of the seas and waters of the world. For more information, as always, please check out the articles and videos in the description and cards. My friends, thank you all so much for being here. Let's journey back into Middle-earth and start our tale. In the beginning, Ulmo was one of the Ainur who aided in the creation of the world. Indeed, save Eru Iluvatar and Melkor, his name appears before any others in the Silmarillion, and among the Valar he is first to be acknowledged by his name in the creation of Ea and Arda. I find this is appropriate, for it is said that of all the Ainur, he was most deeply instructed by Iluvatar and the art of music, and it is said by the elves that of any substance on earth, the sea retains the most echo of the music of the Ainur. Ulmo's love for water grew when Eru explained its versatility. The frosts of Melkor's devising would simply make water just frost and snow, whereas the heats of Melkor would make the clouds, the mists, and rainfall, wherein such things happened in the domain of Manwë, the lord of the skies and winds, who was Ulmo's friend. Ulmo and Manwë together would most faithfully serve Iluvatar of all. And so it was that Ulmo's domain would be the oceans and waters of the world, and during the creation of the physical world, he, Manwë, and Awule, the lord of the substances of the earth, would set out to make the vision of the world they were shown into reality, becoming the first of the Valar. While before Arda was manifested, Ulmo and Manwë were best friends, they would surely drift apart somewhat afterwards, for Ulmo came seldom to the councils of the Valar and did not dwell in Valinor after the Years of the Lamps, not coming there in physical form at all unless the need was great, for he preferred to remain in his own realm, where he needed not embody nor clothe himself in the ways of the other Valar. But when at times he appeared before elves and men, he would fill the children of Iluvatar with great dread, for he was powerful indeed, as a terrible wave, with a dark helm foam-crested, and raiments of mail with the colors of silver and shadows of green. His voice was incredibly deep as the parts of the sea only he ever visited. His vassals were Ose, who saw to the coastlands and would often make the sea violent, and Ose's wife Uinen, who would calm the waves of her husband. Salmar there was also, who created the Ulumari, the great conchs of Ulmo that would make the music of the sea which could not be forgotten. Even though Ose would nearly betray Ulmo at the bidding of Melkor in the early years of the world, he would not, and would be pardoned by Ulmo. Furthermore, besides what was aforementioned, Ulmo would have other differences with the Valar. For one, he would never marry. He would not go with the Valar to Valinor after Melkor's darkness overtook the world, after the destruction of the two lamps, but would rather continue to keep the earth alive with his waters. He would join the Valar in assaulting Atumno and imprisoning Melkor, but when the time came for Melkor to be released, he still did not trust him. Indeed, Melkor held a special hatred and fear in his heart for Ulmo and the seas, for they could never be tamed and dominated, and they would forever be the allies of the free peoples, the sea and its master. After the awakening of the elves, Ulmo would further disagree with the Valar, wishing for the elves to remain free in Middle-earth and tend to the world's hurts. He was, however, overruled, and so he aided many of the elves in coming to Valinor, uprooting the island of Tol Eressëa to be used as a vessel of transport. He first brought the Vanyar and Noldor over the seas, for the Teleri were yet far in the east, looking for their lord Elwë, later known as Thingol, and they missed the calling of the sea. But at last Ulmo hearkened to the prayers of the elves in Valinor, who missed their kin, the Teleri, and he returned to Middle-earth to bring the new king Olwë, and many others to Valinor upon Tol Eressëa again. But others, like Círdan the Shipwright, would stay in Beleriand, as the elves of the Falas, that the voices of the Teleri might remain there. Indeed, the Teleri, most of all three clans of elves, would love the seas. Ose, a great friend of the Teleri, followed thereafter and begged Ulmo to stay their voyage, allowing the Isle of Tol Eressëa to stay as an island off of the coast of Valinor, near Eldamar. Ulmo, who knew the hearts of the Teleri, granted this and allowed Ose to root the island to the foundations of the sea. Now Ulmo had spoken against the coming of the elves, wishing for them to remain in Middle-earth, and so after doing this, the Valar and elves of Valinor were displeased with Ulmo, for they could not see the Teleri and knew not the craft of shipbuilding. Eventually, when the hearts of the Teleri longed to see Valinor, Ulmo relented and allowed Ose to teach the elves of Tol Eressëa shipcraft. It is quite clear at this point in Ulmo's tale that he had a different belief system regarding the role of the Valar. Ulmo was freer than the others, and wished to at all times be in his own realm, and to see the growth of the world, that the vision of the Ainu Lindale might be more fully achieved. He always supported the children of Ilúvatar, and wanted them to come into their own, as designated by Eru himself in the beginning. Indeed, it can well be argued that Ulmo was truly the wisest of the Valar, for though the other Valar are great both in might and praise, and Manwë knew best the mind of Ilúvatar, and Mandos delivered his dooms, Ulmo was far more instrumental in the history of Middle-earth than were any of the other Valar. What's more, he would never give up on the children of Ilúvatar, and would always have their best interests at heart, and be closer to them, while the other powers dwelt in Valinor far to the west, or even sundered from the world except for the straight path. Indeed, even after the exile of the Noldor in 1495 of the Years of the Trees, or during the awakening of men in the far east of Middle-earth, Ulmo was there, in the waters, the rivers, the springs of the world, knowing things that other Valar did not, and he would deliver such messages to Manwë, his friend, and then he would deliver messages back to men through the rivers, who had not the understanding to receive them, but they would love the waters. And so, even when the ban of the Valar was upon the elves, and men were not meant to come to Valinor at all, Ulmo was still with them. In Beleriand, Ulmo had great power in the western sea, of course, but his power ran in all rivers, but especially in Sirion, the river he loved most, and Gelion, another river that he loved. Such places would hold his power, and when, during the year 50 of the First Age, Turgon visited his cousin Finrod upon the small isle of Tol Sirion, which was on the river, Ulmo gave the both of them deep sleep and troubled dreams about making places of hidden strength should the enemy come from the north. The next year, Ulmo would appear to Turgon directly, and bid him to go to the Vale of Sirion alone, and so, with Ulmo's guidance, Turgon would find the hidden Vale of Tumladen, where he would create the city Gondolin. In 116 of the First Age, Gondolin was completed, and Ulmo went once more to Turgon directly, telling him to go to Gondolin, and Ulmo's powers in the Vale of Sirion would hold as to protect the movement of his people and the hidden entrance. But he warned Turgon of two things. Gondolin would remain the longest of all the elven realms against Melkor, but Turgon should remember that true hope comes from the west and the sea. And he should leave behind some arms and a sword in Nevrast, for even though the doom of Mandos was on Turgon, Ulmo would send a warning to Turgon, who would bear these arms and sword when peril and treason drew nigh. Eventually, when messengers were sent from the elves towards Valinor asking for aid later in the age, Ulmo would save one of these from the wrath of Ose, Varanwe, for such a time would come when he would be needed to guide the one who would deliver the warning to Gondolin. During the wars of the First Age, Ulmo would even come to Círdan, giving him warning that peril came to Nargothrond, the realm of Finrod, and though Círdan would send messengers with this warning, they would be spurned by Turin, son of Hurin, and the realm would fall. Turin's cousin Tur, however, would be the instrument of Ulmo's designs concerning Gondolin, and he would bear the warning to Turgon, which was well fated, for his father and uncle, Hur and Hurin, had once come to Gondolin themselves. Thus, through the powers of Ulmo, Tur would come to Nevrast, having the aid of Círdan's very messengers that were sent to Nargothrond. He would find the sword and armor left for him there by Turgon, and he would speak to Ulmo directly by the sea, and the Lord of the Seas would give him a great cloak to hide him from his enemies. Varanwe, the elf who was spared from the sea, would be Tur's guide to Gondolin, so that the warning of treachery and ruin might find Turgon in time, and he and his people could leave the city. But of course, fate had a different plan, and Turgon would not heed this warning, and he would perish in the fall of Gondolin in 510. After this, Ulmo would do a rare thing, and he would go to speak with the Valar. He spoke to them of the blight of the elves, and called upon them to forgive them, and to rescue them and the Silmarils, in which dwelt the light of the two trees. But Manwë moved not. Tur had a son with Eärendil, the daughter of Turgon, and he was Eärendil, and would surely have the blessing of Ulmo, for he and his wife Elwing dwelt in the Falas by the sea. Thus, when the third kinslaying came, and Elwing leapt into the sea with the Silmaril, Ulmo would save her, and gave her the likeness of a bird, so that she and her Silmaril could come to Eärendil, who was sailing the seas. And so it was that Eärendil and Elwing came to Valinor, and Ulmo was summoned by the Valar to attend a council. He lobbied for them, for this was Eärendil's purpose, and since he was half-elven, who was to say what doom should be applied to him? But in the end, the Valar finally agreed to aid the Free Peoples, and they would assemble a mighty host that would overthrow Morgoth. Ulmo's purpose to aid, and even save the Free Peoples, was achieved, and into his realm would be cast one of the 3 Silmarils, whereas another would go into the sky and stars, the realms of Manwë and Varda, and another into the earth, the realm of Aule. So it was that Melkor was finally defeated, and the children of Ilúvatar could be left to their own rule in Middle-earth. And although Ulmo became far less overtly involved in the affairs of the world, I will not say that he was not ever on the side of the Free Peoples, and aiding them, if only subtly. Perhaps he had a hand in the rise and fall of the island of Númenor, for that realm mastered the sea, but was also mastered by the sea. Who's to say why the One Ring never went out to sea from the Anduin? Perhaps it was his power in that river that kept the ring stationed in Middle-earth, for had it gone out to sea, like the Silmaril of Maglor, Sauron would have surely had victory. Maybe Ulmo even had a hand in every elven ship that found its way west. Even to this very day, it may be that the power and realm of Ulmo, of all the powers and realms of the Valar, are most apparent in our world today. The next time you hear the sound of water, the sound of the sea, listen for the music of the Ainur, and you will hear the echoes of it. And so we come to the end of our tale about Ulmo, the Lord of the Seas. Ulmo reminds us that simply doing nothing is not enough, especially when we have the might and the compassion to aid others. Whether it was advocating for the freedoms of the children of Eru, or pleading for aid on their behalf, Ulmo has never forsaken us, nor will he. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed today's epic character history. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and share this with a friend. What are your thoughts, questions, additions, and corrections on Ulmo? Let me know in the comments below. I know I always say Tolkien is my favorite Vala, and while I do greatly admire him, his strength, and the memes about him, Ulmo must be my true favorite Vala for story and character reasons. He was truly the best of them. Speaking of which, thanks to our Valar tier patrons, Adrian De la Torre, Chris Ortner, Kyle Wetzel, Peter Sheppard, Jonathan Putnam, Mark Kralik, Blair Scout, Tobias Goldner, Merton, John Hume, Reggie93, Jennifer Wood, Sam McBee, Matt Sabach, Quantum Catalyst, Elizabeth Calvert, Maz Gibbs, Ben Gardner, Kondar, and Reese Jenkins. Thank you so much, and thank you to all of our patrons. It really means a lot. Please subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all of the Free Peoples today. And I'll see you all again on Hobbit Day, with a special epic character history on Frodo Baggins. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one.